Is digital ownership really a monopoly, or are we just angry about renting? Today on The Game Adventure, we're talking about the Stop Killing Games lawsuit, why the Pixel 11 might not be the best one for gamers, and why PCs might be the best place to play some of your Nintendo classics. Let's go. The Game Adventure Podcast is a family-friendly show that keeps you current in the world of video games. We'll talk about current developer and tech announcements, go through the best ways to play our favorite retro games, and cover an always up-to-date wish list of games to keep an eye out for. We're doing it every week and always in under an hour, so let's go. What is up, everybody? Hope you're doing fantastic and had a great week. I had a pretty good week. Honestly, it was really full of life stuff. I had a family member who was having a surgery. I had a funeral that I officiated. I had a baptism service for our church, which was really exciting. So some like really good, really heavy, really difficult kind of things happening this week. I honestly didn't really think about video games at all. And sometimes life is just like that. So it's good to be sitting down with you this morning and kind of talking about some more lighthearted stuff in general, technology, video games. This is a fun thing to do every once in a while, and hopefully it serves you well and kind of allows you to engage with your life the rest of the week and then still keep caught up on this fun little hobby that we have with video games. I kind of like my video game time is usually in the evenings. So after my kids go to bed, after, we do story time, we do all the stuff that you do with your kids, trying to get them to calm down and go to bed at night. Usually that's my video game time, is kind of in the evening. And I usually try to make the most of that. One thing that I've really done that is helpful to me is to make a list of the games that I want to play. And that is a list that is definitely always in motion. So there's games that drop off that I just don't care about anymore. Games that I want to play more. Games that I'm given. So I was given Metroid Prime 4 for my birthday. So I'm still picking away at that, trying to get through the entire game and see every part of it that I can because I waited so long for this game. So that's been a lot of fun. But I also try to kind of stick with one game at a time. So there are tons of games that I want to play, but I have the one game that I'm playing. So when it's time to sit down for 30 minutes at night and play a video game, I know exactly what game I'm playing. I sit down, I play, I have a good time. And then what actually is kind of a side effect of just having the one game that I'm focusing on is I start to look at that list by the time I get close to the end, and I get excited for the next game that I'm going to play. So it's like I'm working up some excitement for that next title, and I actually end up enjoying it more because it's just limited time, limited scope. I already have the game picked out. So if you're a busy dad like me, or you're busy just with work, life, everything else, and you're looking for something to handle the overwhelm of, oh my gosh, I have so many games on my wish list, on my list of games I have on my console, maybe that's helpful to you. Pick a game, have a couple in the queue that you're going to play next, so that when it's time to sit down, you're not trying to pick out what you're going to play. You just sit down and play for a while. So anyway, that's a little bit of what's going on with me. Let's jump into what's happening in the industry this week. Last week we talked about EA's getting bought out. So Electronic Arts got bought out by Saudi Arabia, which is basically, this is a huge hedge fund that has purchased them as an investment. So it's kind of mixed feelings because I don't feel like EA was doing great managing themselves. But I don't know if Saudi Arabia as a country is, I don't know how that works. This is kind of foreign to me, but apparently they've got a lot of cash to throw around. And now they own EA and all of those properties, including Bioware. So that's what I wanted to talk about this week in relation to this story, is that Bioware has some of the games that I've really enjoyed in the past. So Dragon Age as an IP, super interesting world. I've read some of the novels, which I know is really nerdy, but this is probably the right place to admit that. I've really enjoyed Mass Effect as well. Has been one of those games that, the Mass Effect trilogy was coming out right around the time when I was in college, and I had a little bit of time to actually play some video games. And so I played those games a lot. And the stories, I like, I think there's some controversy around around Mass Effect in particular because of the choices that you could make in that game. Some of them were pretty dark choices. Some of them were like very questionable moral choices. But I appreciate that they give you an option to choose what you're going to do. And they're options that you kind of have to like weigh seriously because it affects the outcome of the game. So as a Christian, I don't have an issue with some of the content that is potentially available in that game because you have the choice to not engage with that, just like you do with the rest of life and the world. You choose what you are going to do and what you're going to engage with. So I think that's one of the reasons I've stayed kind of connected to the Mass Effect world amidst some of the controversy that's been around it in years past. But we'll see what happens with Mass Effect. They've kind of been teasing Mass Effect 5 for like 4 or 5 years now, and we still haven't seen anything of it. And one of the lead writers from the Dragon Age franchise, Mark Dara, talked about how if those games are going to move forward, it's going to be because somebody buys the entire IP. So like somebody buys Mass Effect, the entire back catalog, the ideas, and makes a new game. Or Dragon Age. And so without it depends on who buys those, but without the writers behind it, without the people behind it, we might not see the next Mass Effect, and it might not even be the same type of game depending on who's actually behind it. More industry layoffs happened this week. There was more cuts at Xbox, over at ZeniMax, id Software. We kind of knew that these were coming. We've known for a while that Xbox is trying to greatly reduce the amount of people that they have in these studios to run a little more lean. However, some of the people that are getting let go are kind of contradicting their narrative that this is just middle management that they're getting rid of. And so some of these people that are getting fired are saying, I was an artist. I was one of the character designers. I was one of the writers. And some of the accusations they're making is that AI is being used to replace them. And so probably there's a story somewhere in the middle that's actually closer to the truth where there is some of that happening. But also some of these people, the things that they're listing that they worked on are like projects that are pretty far in the past. So I would ask the question, well, what were you doing now? Like, what were you working on the day before you were let go? I think that would be far more telling, and we just don't have that kind of information. So we'll just kind of have to see what continues to happen with these layoffs and whether – I think a question I had was if you lost your job, particularly if you were thinking that AI was the one that took your job from you, would you really want to go back to that company? Some of these folks are like protesting outside of the studio headquarters and demanding their jobs back. But if somebody let you go and then replaced you with AI, would you really want to go work for them again? I wouldn't. Like, I don't think that I would want that job back. Maybe it's time to go do something or make something different. Another big piece of news was the Stop Killing Games initiative, which we've talked about before. The idea behind this initiative is good. And the idea is don't kill the games that are available because you don't want to support them any longer. Make them available to the people who, again, own the game. What they really own is a license or a right to play it. But don't take that away from people who have purchased the game just because you don't want to continue to support it. Make that game available to continue running via other types of support. So you don't have to keep it running on your servers necessarily, but allow us to keep the game running. So that we don't lose these games when the people who made it are just tired of supporting it. The biggest piece of news was that they're filing a lawsuit in the Netherlands against Sony in particular, and they're claiming that Sony is a digital monopoly. So I think PlayStation doesn't have a monopoly. I don't know that this case is going to move forward. It'll be interesting to see what arguments are made and how people or companies like Sony respond. But I mean, a monopoly is when one company completely controls the playing field and so that there can't be any competition. And when it comes to video games, I don't know that Sony really has a monopoly. I mean, on their console, sure. But if you don't want to play their games on their console, you can go to Xbox, you can go to Nintendo, you can play on your PC. There's a lot of cross-platform games. So I don't know that qualifies as a monopoly. But maybe one of the good things that comes out of this is we get clarified language around what we're actually buying. So I would love to see some of those buy buttons on the games where we're buying just a digital right turn into rental buttons or like a license use kind of buttons, so that it's clearer that, oh, I'm not buying ownership of the game. I'm just buying the right to play it for a specific amount of time. I think people would be more likely actually to buy a 1-year rental of a game than they would be to buy a kind of undefined license for like a time frame. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully some good things come out of this for the consumer, though, in a kind of playing field that's been mostly controlled by the companies making the games. Blizzard was kind of outed as Xbox's top performing studio. This was a leak. They did not intend for this to come out. But among all the studios that Xbox has bought up, and even the original games that Xbox studios have put out, Blizzard is actually the top performing one. Not surprising considering some of the IPs that they control, with games like Warcraft, for example. Another kind of fun thing was GameStop and eBay have had this kind of back and forth thing over the last couple of months where GameStop says, we're going to buy eBay. And they put out an offer that's like so much more money than they actually have, which is weird because they're serious about the offer. And eBay says, we're not going to be acquired by GameStop. We have no interest in that at all. And so now finally there's maybe some sense being knocked into somebody, because now they're saying, well, we're going to withdraw our offer. We're not going to buy you, but we'd like to be a partner. Like, is there a partnership that we can have, especially around video games? And so that could be a very smart move, particularly for GameStop. I don't know that eBay needs that to be successful. I suppose they have competition from places like Facebook Marketplace and even Amazon. So maybe a partnership is going to work out really well. We'll see what happens there. Finally, there is Gamescom 2026 is a big game show that is happening on August 25th. Something like 18 AAA games are going to be talked about that are releasing leading up to Grand Theft Auto's release. So they're kind of trying to get stuff out the door before that actually happens. So I just thought I'd mention it today. We'll definitely have some expanded coverage via the podcast of that and the announcements that come along with that. And with that, let's jump over and look at some tech in the tech update. We've been talking about Valve's hardware an awful lot in the tech section over the last couple of weeks, but they are expanding SteamOS, their operating system, to more handhelds. A whole bunch of them were listed, and two in particular that caught my eye were made by the company Ayeneo. It's the Pocket S2 and the Conquer Fit. Again, Conquer, the either worst or best name for a handheld ever. Maybe it's somewhere in the middle. I can't get over Conquer. Like, come on, you can pick a better name for a handheld than that. Or it's just secretly genius because now I think about it, far more than I should for a handheld name. So maybe they accomplished their goal with that. I don't know. But they're bringing SteamOS support to those. So it's really fun to see that happening. I think it makes them potentially more appealing to a lot of folks who've never messed around with those like either Android or Linux handhelds that are made by these Chinese companies primarily. But maybe that is a good option, especially if you're playing around with different open source software. I've kind of experimented with a handful of them, depending on the handheld. And so if SteamOS is coming to some of these, I might actually be interested in experimenting with that. Another handheld device that was announced this week is from Google. So the Pixel 11, the next line of Google phones, was released, or announced at least. However, usually when a new phone comes out, we like to talk about what are the gaming capabilities, or at least that's what the nerds talk about, okay? And I am one of those. So we would look at it and say, is this good for emulation? Can you use it for games? There's a ton of games via the Google Play Store. And so is this going to be a capable handheld in its own right? Sometimes the best gaming handheld that you can get is the one that is already in your pocket using your phone. For emulation or otherwise. And usually when you're in a space where, oh gosh, I need something to do for 15 minutes while I'm waiting at the doctor's office, right? It's a good opportunity to play a game. Your phone is already in your pocket. So the Pixel 11 has upgraded a whole bunch of parts on it, but their focus is actually on the AI compute power. So there's like a 50% increase in the AI capability of this device compared to their previous series. But all of the benchmarks for the actual hardware show that it kind of trails all of the competitors. So your iPhone, your current iPhone, is probably better equipped for games than the brand new Google Pixel 11. So that's just kind of good to know. You might be better off sticking with the device that you have, unless you're looking for a new phone, in which case maybe you consider the Pixel 11. I might not, but that's an option that is coming down the pipe pretty quick here. SanDisk announced some new expansion cards for Xbox up to 2 terabytes. This is the Optimus line of expansion cards, and I guess if you're looking for more storage space on your existing console, this is a really good option. It's nice that companies like SanDisk are jumping in and trying to create a solution for folks who want more space, but they definitely can't afford a new Xbox because those things are just continuing to climb in price. These aren't super cheap, so you're looking at probably $150 to $200 depending on the size that you want in this. But they're designed for Xbox, so you can use the resume play options. You can play games right off the card. You don't have to shuffle your games around. I will say that I have had a Series S for a while, and I have not really ever thought about upgrading the memory because I usually only have a couple of games on the console at a time. My internet is fast enough that I just would rather delete a game to make space and then re-download it if I want to play it again. I already shared how I kind of just play one game at a time, and so that's a setup that works well for me, is just to continue moving games on and off of the console. But if you have a slower internet connection, if you want to have more games available at a time on your console, this would be an affordable option to store those locally. Another TV announcement, the company Hisense has made the U6 line. I think Best Buy was the one that really started to push this. But it's a 2026 kind of budget TV that is packed with some uncommon features that are specific to gamers. So like 144 hertz refresh rate. They have HDMI 2.0 or 2.1 inputs in it, which is pretty impressive it's pretty forward focused for a budget TV. They also have like VRR is built in. They look pretty fantastic. They have like an anti-glare coating on them. So I think it's kind of counterintuitive that a budget TV would actually be designed for gamers. But I love that in an era where like gaming starts to become more and more expensive, more of like a premium type of hobby, which I've never thought of it as before. This is kind of cool that we're getting some displays coming out that are making that a little more possible. Finally, Xbox had an update over the weekend. I think just a day or two ago, they unlocked 6 new features for everybody. Some of these had come to early access, including like streaming via the cloud while your game downloads, which is really fun. They have download hubs for 360 games. You can do multiple cloud saves. I think probably the biggest deal for me is the streaming the game while you're downloading it, because it lets you start to play immediately. Like the biggest bummer, especially for somebody who moves games on and off the console a lot, is when you're like, all right, I'm going to go play the new Halo game. And then you sit down and you're like, I didn't start it downloading. And so now I can't play until tomorrow. Like I only had 30 minutes and now I can't spend any of that playing this video game. So I guess I'll go back to playing Pokemon Yellow on the Game Boy. Like, life is rough. Have some extra options. You'll be fine. And so will I. That's nothing to complain about. But this is kind of a cool technology that lets you jump in right away and still gives you the whole game, the better experience of a downloaded game. I did compare last month. I was playing Forza Horizon 6 and noticed that I tried streaming it first, via the computer that I have that's like directly connected to my modem. And so I played it on there, and streaming was okay. Like there was a little bit of lag, but it was pretty good. It definitely didn't make it unplayable. But I did, while I played that, I downloaded to my Xbox the actual full game, and playing it, they're like definitely the better experience, even with pretty fast internet and a direct connection. Streaming the game was not the preferable way to play something that takes like fast reflexes, and it looked cleaner too. So I think definitely I would never want to stream exclusively, at least with the technology where it is right now. One more thing related to streaming that I thought was worth mentioning, Twitch, the streaming service that everybody in the world is familiar with. What you may not have known about them is that they've been owned by Amazon since 2014. Amazon turned on a feature within Twitch, where their generative AI model is allowed to use your channel content as a Twitch streamer by default. This is absolutely wrong. They're not the first company to do this, but you should never roll out a feature that allows the company to use your content without first asking your permission. Like you cannot roll this out by a default. That's like saying, I'm going to take your stuff unless you tell me not to. No. The standard rule for that would be that's your stuff unless I ask for your permission to use it. That's like, come on, that's growing up with siblings 101, Amazon. You should know better than that. And yet they apparently have written this into their terms and conditions that you automatically agree to when you use Twitch, that they can use your stuff unless you tell them they can't. I'm having the same type of struggle as an artist on Instagram and Facebook. Like the rules for what they can and can't use of the content that I like draw and put on there is sometimes very ambiguous. It's very much in favor of them being able to use your content to train their AI models to even use your stuff as part of their content. So be careful. I guess go check your Twitch settings if you are a streamer. And gosh, I would even maybe consider looking at some other streaming options if this type of thing continues to be the norm in that industry. So that's everything with what's happening in the technology world as of late. Let's jump over to some older stuff in the retro rerun. We talked about the ModRetro M64 in the last couple of weeks, and they dropped a firmware update that brings some Wi-Fi updates. It means you can do over-the-air updates in addition to like the USB drive updates. So that's nice. They also kind of like shadow dropped some enhanced Game Boy versions of both Earthworm Jim, if you remember that one. I remember playing this one on the Game Boy. I remember being really frustrated because I couldn't quite tell where I was standing because of the way like the background art was done. It felt like a little bit loose controls, but because it was the only game that I had for a little while, I still played it to death. And so it looks really, really faithful to the original. And then Rayman 2 is getting kind of an update, an enhanced version, which looks like, it looks really, really good. I love that the games that are being released on these like hardware options, like the M64, like their handhelds, are really authentic to the original. So it's not like, it doesn't just look like you ported it over to a PC. It looks like authentic to how it originally did. So that's awesome. Some more Pokemon updates. FireRed and LeafGreen have been on the Nintendo Switch for a while. They are now getting an update. And you're like, when I first saw this story, I was like, what in the world are they updating? It's an old game that is available to play. What do you need to change? They said, we're adding a home connectivity. So Pokemon Home allows you to move your Pokemon that you catch on older games into newer games. You keep them in this like repository for keeping all of your Pokemon available to you. And so they're bringing that to FireRed and LeafGreen, which is great. That is an argument for why you should have them on the Switch instead of just emulating your originals that you had on the Game Boy Advance. There's also some whispers of maybe Ruby and Sapphire coming as well, which would be exciting. And then kind of on the flip side of that, the Pokemon Bank, which was the only way that you could transfer Pokemon from very old games, is going to shut down February of next year. So it's not like an immediate thing that's happening. It's I think that transfer path has been around for a long time. So if you haven't used it by now, you probably don't care about those dear sweet Pokemon that you've left on that old game, unless you want to go back to the old game and play them. So I don't know that it's reasonable to expect them to keep this service running forever for every old game. So like you kind of win some, you lose some there. Pokemon Bank shutting down, but Pokemon Home coming to FireRed and LeafGreen. So there you go. As far as playing your favorite games, these are great ways to play those Pokemon games if you don't have your original copies. If you want some of the newer features like Pokemon Home, being able to use that and transfer your Pokemon into other new Pokemon games, even ones that haven't come out yet. But I think there's a question of, is some of these games coming to emulating on systems like the Switch 2? Because the Switch 2, you can play GameCube games on that are available via their subscription service, but they really are just emulating the GameCube version of it. And some of these games have been around for long enough that they've been transferred or like recoded into a standard PC game. And so like we've seen this happen with Super Mario Sunshine, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. I've talked quite a bit about Dusk, the PC recomp of Twilight Princess. My son has been playing a ton of Twilight Princess via Dusk. I have the original GameCube game in my cabinet, and so we're able to use the ROM to play via the PC. And so he's playing with, upgraded graphics. It looks great on a PC screen. He's using an Xbox controller, which makes my dad heart so happy that he's learning to use a controller in addition to mouse and keyboard. But he's loving it. And so, I love that things like Super Mario Sunshine are coming to the GameCube. But the best way to play Super Mario Sunshine might not even be on a Nintendo device, which is kind of wild and something that Nintendo should be paying attention to, because when you have an option to play, when your software is out there, like you want to be the best option for playing this software. You want to have the best looking one, the best playing one, the one that's easiest to configure. So while the PC versions of these do take a little bit of know-how, and they're, some of them exist in kind of a legal gray area where it's like, well, I have the software, and I know that you're really not supposed to do this with the software, but it's just for my own use. Nintendo's not going to come after you, likely is not. But as the producer of this software, you want to be the best option. And so Nintendo, I think, is going to have to maybe up their game a little bit when it comes to keeping up with some of these classic games. Another classic game, Toy Story 3, for the Xbox. I think it was on a couple of consoles from back in the day, but there's a new complete edition that's being released of Toy Story 3, like completely remastered. They've got some of the older Toy Story games as well that's coming as part of a collection in October. And so as a part of that, they actually delisted the original Toy Story 3 game from the Xbox store. I understand why they would want people to buy the complete edition, but for those of us who want to be able to preserve those classic versions of the game, it doesn't hurt anything to have that still available on your store. To give people the option. I mean, you can include a caveat like, hey, there's a newer version of this game available. You can buy the remaster version. But some people really are looking for the Xbox 360 version of this game. That's actually what we want to play because it's nostalgic. It's part of our memory of the past. And we don't want the remaster necessarily because that doesn't quite hit the same way. I think you could say the same thing about Halo. Like, well, I don't know that the remaster hits quite the same way. It might be a great game, might look and play really well, but it's not the same as having the original Halo game and being able to play that. So just my thoughts. I think if you can keep it on your store, it's worthwhile for you to do that. With that, let's jump over. That's a mini soapbox. Let's jump over to the actual soapbox segment for this week. I think there's a growing risk in gaming right now of creating a kind of community of kind of angry, maybe entitled, cynical gamers who have kind of forgotten what video games are supposed to be about. They're supposed to be fun. And I know that sounds incredibly obvious, but lately I'm not so sure that it is. So I put a post on social media recently that was intentionally positive. Basically, it was, what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to in the next generation of hardware? Like, this used to be something that we all talked about all the time. Like, what are we excited? What are the possibilities of what could be? What is nobody talking about that you want to see more of? Because yes, there is a lot to be frustrated about in the video game industry. There are disappointing business decisions. There are games that don't live up to expectations. There are things worth criticizing. And it's completely valid to be disappointed by those things. But I wanted to ask, what are we actually excited about? And one person said that they wished companies would experiment more again, like the Nintendo Wii, like Nintendo did with the Wii. And I thought, like, yes, that's exactly the kind of conversation I want to have. That's what I'm getting at. What are you excited about for like the possibilities of what's coming down the line? But I would say the vast majority of responses that I got to that post were things like nothing. I'm not excited about anything anymore. Games aren't good anymore. There's just nothing worth playing. And I kind of keep running into this everywhere. And at some point, I just want to ask, like, if you hate video games this much, why are you spending your free time on a gaming channel commenting on a video game post? Like, go outside, find another hobby, touch some grass. Like, you know what I mean? Do something that you enjoy. Because I think we're kind of in danger of cultivating a culture around gaming where cynicism and negativity becomes the default way to prove that you're a real gamer. And that's strange to me because that is not how I learned to love video games. Like when I was younger, all of my friends would have the newest Xbox or PlayStation, and I'd still have my GameCube. And I was playing Metroid Prime when everyone else had moved on to newer systems and newer games. And I didn't care. I had Metroid Prime. I had Mario Sunshine. I played my original Halo disc on my used Xbox that was slightly scratched and sometimes froze. And I was happy. I didn't need the newest console to consider myself a gamer. I just needed a game that I really enjoyed playing. And maybe that affects how I look at gaming now, because for a lot of my life, I was playing kind of the leftover consoles, the last generation, the systems that everybody else had kind of moved on from. But even today, if I didn't have a Switch 2, which was a gift to me, like I probably wouldn't have bought it for myself at the price that it's at. If I didn't have that, it wouldn't somehow mean that there were no games for me to play. There are dozens of games that are released just on the original Switch in the last 10 years that I haven't played and I haven't gotten to yet. And that's before we even talk about every other system. So if you're frustrated with AAA games right now, play a retro game. Play an indie game. You can find indie games on basically every console. You can play them on an iPad or an iPhone. Like, you don't need the latest hardware. There are thousands and thousands of games that are made by incredibly talented people who have worked very hard to create something that you might absolutely love. So if you genuinely cannot find a single game that sounds fun to you right now, and you're mad about the digital future of video games and things that are happening in the industry, I don't think the problem is that there isn't any good to be found. I think something has happened to our perspective. And I don't mean that we should stop criticizing the industry. I think criticism does have a place and it matters. There are things that companies do that deserve to be called out. But criticism cannot be the entire foundation of a hobby that we supposedly participate in because we love it. That's part of why I made this show. I want to find my people. Every once in a while, somebody comments something and I immediately think like, yes, that's fun. These are my people. People who are excited about games, people who can criticize something and still have respect for one another and enjoy something else, people who want to find the good in gaming and just have fun with it. If you honestly aren't excited about anything coming out, reach out to me. Seriously, I would love to help. Tell me a game that you love. I will happily try to give you 5 other games that I think you might enjoy, because there are good games out there. And I think we need to start kind of huddling around that again. Because somewhere in the modern gaming atmosphere, I think we're losing something. And it's not just exhausting for the people playing games. I imagine it's pretty disheartening for the people who are making them too, because video games are supposed to be fun. So maybe we should start acting like we remember that that's true. Last but not least, the game list this week is a little shorter than in the past. We're kind of in that like mid-August, not a ton of things coming out. Games have either already come to the streaming services or have already left them. So we don't know like what's coming and what's leaving next. But a couple of games I wanted to highlight for you. One is a big announcement this week for fans of Harry Potter. Hogwarts Legacy 2 was officially confirmed. We kind of knew that they were working on the next Hogwarts game because of the success of the first one. But this, the first game was absolutely enormous, incredibly fun. It got a little bit dark for younger kids, especially. So like if your kids aren't old enough to really like understand and handle the darker side of Harry Potter, then they're not going to be comfortable with this game either. But all in all, it's a fantastic game. It's a good experience. I actually feel like I need to go back and play it again at some point, because the world is so big that you just only see a little bit of it in your first playthrough. So Hogwarts Legacy 2, it'll be exciting to see what time period. The first one was put in like the mid 1800s. And so are they going to go 1900s? Are they going to go like closer to the actual time frame of the books and the movies? I don't know, but I'm excited to see what they do with it. Another game to keep an eye out for is the game Kynseed. This is not a new game. It is a role-playing game from developers who worked on Fable, which is really cool. This is an example of like follow the developer to the next project that they work on. It's made by Pixel Count Studios. It came out actually in 2022 on Steam, but it is now coming to consoles. So this is a great opportunity if you're not a PC gamer to get in on a game that is indie developed. Kind of like the look of a Stardew Valley kind of thing, but a little more of the adventure role-playing type stuff that you would find in a Fable game. I think if you look at this game, you're like, oh yeah, I can see the Fable inspiration like in the characters and the way the world looks and feels. So I'm excited to actually check this one out. Another one is Star Wars Galactic Racer. So this one is, I think, going to be surprisingly deep for like a racing game. And also the fact that it's a Star Wars game is awesome. So I just recently introduced my kids to Star Wars. Like they're getting old enough to where they can handle the original trilogy at least. And so we're watching that together. And also it's fun to have this like crossover where, okay, this is a Star Wars game that we can actually play that you'll think is cool, that also doesn't have kind of the darker side that some of the Star Wars games bring in. So I think this is one to keep an eye on. The campaign looks like surprisingly robust, and then there's also going to be pod racing included with it. And I also saw a recent post from them about land speeders, that they're going to have a whole category of like land speeders to race around the planet. So this looks like a lot of fun. Star Wars Galactic Racer. A weird game that is like one of the few indie games that is like climbing the Xbox charts is Waterpark Simulator. I don't really know what to make of this one. I thought I'd show you some footage at least. It's super goofy looking, like definitely an indie game, definitely an early release version of this game. I don't know. It looks kind of incomplete, but it looks like maybe that's what they're going for, is just like goofy. You run a water park, you spray people with water guns, you shoot them through rides that are terrifying. It looks like one that might get the kids laughing. So that might be one that we check out together. Another game for the older gamers among us, perhaps, or younger gamers looking to experience the N64 era of 007 and spy games. Agent 64 Spies Never Die is the name of this N64 style shooter. It just came out on Steam. It reminds me of the James Bond games that I grew up absolutely loving. But it remains to be seen if it's like relying more on nostalgia or it actually has some like actual good gameplay on its own. It definitely has like 007, like GoldenEye, Perfect Dark kind of vibes going on. But that one looks like one to definitely check out. And it's out on Steam now. So another game coming out or this last week was Oblivion Remastered for the Switch 2. So this is a game that came out ironically on Xbox because Xbox owns the studio. However, the version that's on the Xbox is inferior to the version that they just released on the Switch 2, which doesn't make any sense at all. Hopefully there's been a lot of conversation around this game needing patches and needing to be fixed up because there's bugs and issues with the one that's on Xbox. So hopefully all that bug squashing that they did before they released it on a Nintendo, on a quality console like the Switch 2, they'll bring to the Xbox as well. I'm a fan of Xbox and Nintendo, to be fair. And I'm not against Sony either. I just don't own a PlayStation, so I have less exposure to PlayStation games. Let's jump over to the mailbag. Just a couple of comments that I wanted to address. We kind of already talked about the amount of negativity. Like I tried this week after getting some interesting comments the week before on some of my, what I didn't really think were very controversial, but apparently social media thought they were controversial posts from this. I tried to pick specifically little clips from the show last week. And I'm like, oh, that's positive. That should invite some like good conversation. Again, like trying to find my people out there, people that would love this podcast. That's who I actually want to interact with on social media. And ended up with just this wave of people that was like, wah, wah, Debbie Downer, really, really sad about the industry and missing the point of what I was trying to get across anyway. So another comment that I got was from a video that I talked about Miyamoto, Shigeru Miyamoto, and something that he had said. And I mispronounced his name as Miyamoto in the video. And the person that commented, this was like one of the most liked comments on this video, was like Miyamoto. He spelled it out like with the word toe and with a crying face, and a bunch of people liked it. I was like, what are you talking about? And I rewatched my own video. I was like, no, I said it wrong. I know better. I'm not stupid. So I did, I appreciate you calling me out, commenter. You could have sent me a private message and saved my pride a little bit, but it's okay. I understand the risk that I'm taking by putting out content on social media. The truth is that I grew up reading Shigeru Miyamoto's name for a lot longer than I have heard his name pronounced. So I grew up reading his name in like Nintendo Power magazines. I had friends who also would say it, that would say Miyamoto. So I grew up until I was probably mid-teens, did I ever hear somebody correctly pronounce it, and had an aha moment. And so now when I'm kind of trying to talk off the cuff, thinking about other things while I'm speaking, I will occasionally call him Miyamoto, because I slip right back into what I grew up saying. I'm sure there are words that you also say, you're in the same boat with like, oh yeah, I used to mispronounce this all the time. And sometimes when I'm not thinking about it, I'll say it wrong again. I know that like my kids are learning words, and I will frequently use one of the mispronounced words that they use because it becomes part of our like family vernacular. And people outside of my family will look at me like, do you know how to say that? Is there something wrong with your vocabulary? So that's fun. Anyway, Shigeru Miyamoto is a fantastic guy and is responsible for some of my favorite franchises in the world. So thanks and apologies for mispronouncing your name on social media. That's going to about do it for us this week. If you want to keep connecting with this podcast, head over to thegameadventure.com and join the free email list there. Joining gets early access to the video edition of this podcast before it comes out on YouTube, and then also an exclusive invitation to our Discord server that should go live later this year. And that means also that we can be digital pen pals, which is fun. So if you're looking for a digital pen pal that wants to talk about video games, I will be your pen pal. And that's all I have to say for this week. I need more coffee. Have a fantastic week. I will see you next week, same time, same place. things happening. Who let the dog down? Out. Out. Who let the dog down? Who?